Yeah, and your calling is your anchor. I mean, no matter what. I mean, guys that are in ministry, listen to what I'm telling you. And I'm just reminding you, because this is something you guys already know. Your calling is your anchor. And that's what you go back to every time something happens, as the winds of change come or the waves of craziness start to overtake you. That calling is your anchor. And when you go back to that anchor, to that calling, and you're not reminding God of what he said to you, you're reminding yourself of what God said to you and what your calling is. And that's where you'll find calm again. Is going back to that anchor of your calling.
Welcome to the Age of Lions podcast, a platform and community dedicated to bringing purpose, strategy, and calling to kingdom-minded people who are 50 plus and excited about their next chapter. Here's your host, Mark Clement.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 33 of the Age of Lions podcast. As you heard from that opening segment from our guest, Rusty Hicks, we're going to have an amazing episode today talking about rest and what that looks like as God is calling you to new things. Excited to get into that. Before we do, I just want to remind you to like, subscribe, follow on whatever channels you're watching or listening to the podcast on. Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. We're on all the platforms. There are some of the other ones that are less known, but you can follow us on any of those. And make sure you check us out at ageoflions.com. At ageoflions.com, you can get on our regular mailing list to get early updates on things, to kind of be in the loop on things that are happening, things that we're working on, and really start to join our community where we can get great feedback from you. And then the other thing I want to let you know about is next week, we're going to move from releasing episodes on Tuesday mornings to Monday mornings, just to see kind of how that works. So you can watch for that next week and just be aware of what's going on there. So when you get into your week on Monday morning, it'll be there first thing, ready to go. And let us know if you like that better. And so as we get into our today's episode with Rusty Hicks, it's going to be an amazing episode. Rusty's a dear friend. We're in a men's group together. He's a high-level leader in business and ministry. We serve together at our church, and our wives work together at Highlands College, and we have a lot of things in common. Rusty is one of those guys that is a kind of an all shucks kind of guy, and that's his personality. He's very straightforward and plain, and kind of simple, but what that kind of conceals is he's a brilliant guy, high-level leader, loves people, and has some incredible insights he's going to share with us today about what it means to rest, especially at our season of life. A lot of times we're leaving one thing, maybe something we've even done for a long time, and there's that sometimes a downtime, a down period in between before God calls us to something new. And so how do we get through that period? How do we get through a period of rest? How do we get through a period of waiting, of patience, of kind of seeking God in his direction, confirmation on calling and things that he's working on? And so it's a really insightful conversation and a lot of fun. And I think you're going to get a lot out of it. So without further delay, here's our special guest today, Rusty Hicks. Hey, Rusty Hicks, what's up, my brother?
Oh, it's another day in paradise, my friend. How are you today?
I'm doing great. It's so good to have you on here. I was really excited when we had the opportunity to when we were talking about this topic we're going to get into today at our small group, and I thought, man, Rusty would be a great person to have on and just share his journey and talk about it. So I'm excited to have you on here.
Hey, I'm excited to be here. Don't know exactly what to expect, but hey, man, I'm open.
That's what I love about you. You'll just go with the flow. So we'll have a good time. And I was telling the audience before we got on together, I was just introducing you, but the way this kind of came up is Rusty and Jeanette, his wife, Jeanette and my wife worked together at Highlands College and at Church of the Highlands. And then Rusty and I, we've been friends now for, when did we kind of connect? A couple of years ago-ish at church, and we just started to get to know each other.
Yeah, it's probably been 4 or 5 years, I guess.
Oh, has it been that long? Okay.
I think the first time we met, yeah.
Oh, yeah, met for sure. And I think maybe in the last couple of years, we've kind of gotten to know each other a little better. And it's one of those things where we keep saying, we got to go to dinner together. It never happens because life is so crazy. But we see each other at church, and we see each other at church staff meetings and college staff meetings because we get to go as spouses. I like to tell people we're the arm candy. We're the trophy husbands. We just go go hang out, make our wives look good. And
Yeah,
both
my
of us know
claim to
that's
fame is
not true.
well, my claim to fame is I'm Jeanette's husband. So.
That's right. That's right. And man, I used to work there and I knew a lot of people, but now, man, the students, especially the traditional college age students, they're all about Jenda Clement. They know her.
Yeah, they are.
They love her. And I'm Mr. Mark. You know, they see me with her and that's about it. So, but hey, I'm proud to be in that role. I'll be Mr. Jenda all day long.
I'm with you, brother.
So, but the way this came up was there's a men's group that we're both part of, and it's been going for a few years. In fact, Rhett and Justin, who were on several episodes ago, they're the leaders of that group. And then this last year, Rusty's joined our group as well, and it's awesome to be together. But one day we were talking about where we're going to go today, and why don't you share a little bit of Rusty, just paint a picture for everybody of kind of your background, where you came from, what you've been doing, and kind of where you are, and then we'll unpack it in a minute. But just I'd love for them to hear from you, kind of just a little bit about who you are.
Sure. I guess professionally, I spent about 40 years in the construction industry, still involved in that in a small way. But several years ago, God put on my heart, it gave me kind of a threefold ministry calling. And I tell folks that it's the first two I failed miserably at in life. Really funny how he uses that. And the third one, I went to kicking and screaming. The first two are men and marriage. I say fail miserably at. I compare myself to what the word says and where I'm supposed to be in life. That is where I throw that out there. But my background is I was divorced, married one time before. I was divorced. Of course, Jeanette and I have been married for 32 years. So I think that I finally figured it out. Well, I say that. We're still working through that, but it's all good.
Yeah. Well, she's a very patient person.
Yes, she is. Trust me, bro. But like I said, started out doing some men's groups with a dear friend of mine who became my best friend and accountability partner. But I was amazed at how the Lord put us in to relationships with folks who were dealing with issues in their life that we had already walked through. And it opened my heart to ministry. And went to Highlands College, of course, and graduated from there. And of course, everybody was saying, "Are you going to full-time ministry?" I said, "Well, no, we're all in full-time ministry." I said, "But where I found myself was in a group of men, if you will. At one time, I think we had over 60 in that group. And I didn't want to fail at being able to minister to these folks. So that's how I found myself in Highlands College. And through that, God put me on a path of showing me that I was qualified. I was not disqualified because of my past. It was my past that actually qualified me to do the ministry that he had called me to, even in the divorce and through all that. I mean, Jeanette and I have led some young married groups that it's been the joy of our life to see these people know that this is hard. We're early in our marriage. We want to do this right. We want to get in with some folks that can actually help us through the process. And I tell everybody, it's not about all the things we've done right. I mean, it is in a way, but it's also about the things that we've done wrong and the things that God has walked us through. And it's just like it's the thrill of our life to be able to walk them through that process and see them get healed and whole and see their marriages healthy and them raising families now with kids and all that. So yeah, that was the marriage side of it. The mission side, I said I came to kicking and screaming. That was a great man that worked for me years ago. Shouldn't say worked for me, worked with me. And he was on me for 3 or 4 years trying to get me to go on a mission trip with them. And I'm be totally honest, I finally just gave in to get him to shut up. I mean, being real. And we went to a small town in Mexico with a group of guys. It was really amazing how God assembled this group of men from all over the Southeast. And we had mutual connections, but none of us knew everybody in the group. And what God did there was amazing in my world because he opened my eyes to the fact that There are people out there living in cardboard boxes. They exist. And he broke my heart on that trip and actually just gave me a heart for missions. From that, I think we went back there 5 times to the same little church village, started an orphanage there. And like I said, it was an amazing time in my life, but it set me on a path to be able to do what God had called me to do. So I was on the board of directors of an organization here in Birmingham who basically they fund missions, if you will. We called it like a missions mutual fund. And we had partners that put us in 195 countries around the world. I found myself working there after I had retired from the construction industry through a series of events and served there for about 3.5 years, part-time at first and full-time. And it was the joy of my life. And then God called me to a new season. And that's kind of the season where I am now. So that's kind of bring you up to date.
Yeah. Well, you're such a great example for our audience. And, as our audience knows, that those who've been with us for a minute, and maybe if you're new, I'll say this one more time, but this whole thing is about really inspiring each other and challenging each other to say that, hey, when we're in our 50s, 60s, 70s, like we're not done. We've got more to give. We've got more to do. We've got more resources to bring to bear on the calling in our life and all the things that go with that. And, what I love about Rusty's story is, Rusty, you've already gone through this one time where you had essentially retired. Not really, but you retired from your job.
2 weeks.
And we're looking, you were going to do something. You weren't going to sit around. And, and God called you to this new opportunity. And in this case, it was a ministry. You gave 3.5 years of your life to it. And when I first met you, that's what you were doing. And so really awesome organization and traveling the world and going to all these places and the 1040 window or am I saying that right? 2080. What do they call it?
Just 1040 window. Yes.
1040. That's right.
Yes.
And then
1040 window.
Just, you were all on the road constantly and overseas, and just, it was a really incredible what you were getting to do. And to your point, now you've gotten to a new season where God's called you out of that season, that season ended. And now you're in this period of trying to figure out what to do next. And that's important because you're not at a place, what are you, 60?
64.
64.
Okay. Yep.
So you're, a lot of people at your age in this time of life go, okay, well, I've done all this. I'm good. Mm-hmm. And you're like, no, there's something else. I don't know what it is yet, but you're actively looking for and seeking God in, what that needs to be. And where we're going to camp out today, we're going to talk about some of the things first, but just to set the stage is what I loved about what you told me a couple weeks ago in small group was, or you were sharing with the whole group, is you're in a season of very intentional rest and intentional waiting. You're not quickly moving to the next thing. You're not reacting to anything. You're basically going, okay, God, I am yours. I'm going to do exactly what you want me to do. But you feel like he's kind of led you to a time of, I want you to just sit tight. I want you to wait on me. I want you to take it easy. I want you to rest and recoup. Because again, you traveled like crazy. It was hard for us to even see each other at church because you were just gone all the time, and overseas travel at that, which is that much harder on just it wears you out. So anyway, so you're in this season now, and we're gonna kind of come back to that and talk about what that's like, what you're learning in that, just to kind of set the table for a few minutes from now. But before we get to that, we'll kind of do what I would call the fun part, and I like to ask everybody as we start the conversations. At what age did you kind of have the realization, and what kind of happened to give you the realization that, I'm not as young as I like to think I am. I'm kind of moving into the older category. Was that a moment in time? Was that a season in time? Like what was that like for you when you kind of had that aha moment?
I think I'm still in the aha moment. I
love it.
I wake up every morning thinking I'm in my 20s.
That's right.
And then I walk by the mirror. That's right. Or I walk by the mirror and go, wow, what happened to you?
Yeah.
So I really think for me, it's been a process. I think age, we disqualify ourselves too often or too quickly when we look at our age. It's like the whole retirement gig. I looked through the word, searched the word, and I've not been able to find the word retirement.
That's right.
So in that, I was looking for my reassignment, what was next for me. And I feel like as long as we're breathing, God's still got a purpose and a plan for our lives, and we're supposed to serve him the best way that we can. And for all you people out there that are in your 50s, 60s, you're in the prime of your life. I mean, your experiences of the past, God allowed that to happen in your life so that you can help others through the processes that they're going through. I mean, and I feel like that, I think I may have told you this the other day. I feel like God's telling me not to spend the rest of my life, but to invest the rest of my life and to invest in the next generation. I mean, that's why my wife and I, we do Highlands College small groups. These kids, I mean, that is the next generation. I mean, they are the coming leaders of the spiritual world and also the natural world as we see it today. So we want to make sure that they have a foundation to work from, a solid foundation, a spiritually solid foundation for sure. I mean, I think with these kids, they key more on the things that we tell them about where we messed up in the past, and than they do about what we can tell them of what to do or ways to do it. And from that, it opens the door for us to be able to share the reality of where we are, where we've been, and what God has for us, and what his word says about what we're supposed to do in the coming days, even the end time days. So yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, 100%. And I love that answer, that you're kind of, it's an ongoing process for you.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm with you. Like, there are days I feel older than others, but most days, especially mentally and in a lot of ways like that, like I feel like I'm just getting started. I feel like I've still got a lot to accomplish and a lot to prove, not to people, but just to show up for God, right, and be obedient and do the things that I'm called to do. The body sometimes betrays us a little bit. Might get tired more than we used to, or not recover as quickly from things, or, there's a reality there. But I'm with you. And I think a lot of people, I kind of relate to that. I think a lot of people would say, I don't think of myself as old. I don't think of myself as pushing it. And so, and mindset really is the thing. I mean, a lot of our expert people we've talked to about aging have said mindset is everything. That's probably the biggest place where people either succeed or fail, is kind of how they're thinking about it. So on that note, you're a very strategic person, very intentional, very thoughtful about what you're doing and how you're doing it. So and I love that you said invest too, because while we're talking about calling, I think that is true for all the aspects of our life, investing in our future and health and wellness and all the things. What are some things that you're doing kind of in the context of aging, getting older, that you feel like is really helping you be as prepared and healthy as you can going forward, and so that you have more time, you can show up well as long as you possibly can? How are you investing in yourself spiritually, emotionally, physically, mentally to be effective as you get older?
Well, I've transitioned into where I am now back on December the 1st. So, been at it 3 months now. Felt like the Lord was telling me not to do anything for at least 90 to 120 days and to press in. And what I started to realize was, we talk about the word, and we talk about tithe. And most people think of the tithe from a monetary perspective of money. But really the most valuable asset that we have is our time, and not the money aspect. I mean, it's our time. And I felt like God was saying, give me 10%. So if we take 24 hours in a day, it's just over 2.5 hours a day. So for the last 90 days, that's what I've been trying to do, is give him 2.5 hours and trying to give him the first. I mean, there's always distractions, don't get me wrong, but you always want to try to I'm trying to give him the first in the morning. And of course, people say 2.5 hours, what does that look like? I said, well, it's not 2.5 hours with my head buried in a Bible or sitting there to total worship. It's a combination of that and more. I've got a stack of devotionals that I go through every morning. There's reading of the word, of course, that I go through every morning. There's prayer time in the morning, and there's worship. And I'm trying to stay too true to that. When that God also has kind of shown me, that I've got to take care of myself. And that's the thing I'm trying to work into my time, is to try to understand that the first is His. Then I have to take care of me, because if I don't take care of me, I've got nothing to offer anybody else.
That's right.
So that's something I'm trying to work on now. And it's a regiment that when I was in the work world, I had places I had to be, times I had to be there, and appointments. What I'm trying to do is make sure that I'm setting that time aside, making that important, and knowing that is important for longevity. But also, it's kind of, Pastor Chris did a series years ago called The Five, What's Your Five? And in that, the Lord would be number one, and everything else kind of filters out of that. But in that five, you need to be in that mix somewhere. So that's kind of the next element that I'm working on, is how do I take care of me in the process? When the weather's gotten better, I want to make sure that I get my 10 to 12,000 steps in a day. But there's also some other things, diet on top of that, trying to make sure that I'm not eating the things I'm not supposed to eat. But so that's kind of what He's showing me, is to get everything back in order. Now, reordering that, I have to start thinking about my relationships as well. I mean, our small group meets at 8:30 in the morning. So, I mean, in order to do my 2.5 hours and an hour there, it puts me getting up extremely early. So, I have to make adjustments for those days. And I also have to I want to tell you, it's okay to have those adjustments. So that's what I'm trying to tell myself too, is okay, but you have to fit it in and make sure it gets done. So that's kind of the process that I'm working through right now in that. And everything else is becoming secondary. I'm not saying it's not as important, but I'm seeing that if I'm not spiritually fit and physically fit, then I'm not going to be fit to do what I'm called to do, and to give people my best as well. It's important to me, and I talk to these kids about this. The most important person in the world is the one that's in front of you right now, the one you're locking eyes with. Well, if you're worn out or you're checked out, it's hard to give them your best. And that's kind of where I am. I mean, the relationships that God put me in, I want to make sure that I'm giving them my best. So that's kind of where I am right now. Okay. And that's what he's walking me through. So. Yeah.
And what a gift to have some freedom and have some time where you don't have to be working or have to have a, set income or whatever. Like, you're kind of okay. So it's like, let's take a minute. And, I went through a similar season when I left Highlands College, and I was trying to decide what to do next.
Right.
And, it's kind of like you. God had called me out of that. I wasn't really sure what the next thing was going to be. I knew He had something for me to do. And was really blessed to be able to take about 4 or 5 months and just kind of do nothing except seek Him, pray, process, decompress, because that was a big job, hard job. It had a lot of stress around it. So it was like, it's kind of just letting all that stuff go and kind of learning how to rest and relax again. And then kind of go through that process of really being able to listen and hear, what was going to be next for me. And so it is a maybe a benefit of being a little bit older that you have that option.
Yeah, that's right.
Because that's a hard thing to do when you're trying to hold down a job. It's hard to rest and work and do all that at the same time. So totally.
Well, I also want to tell folks, it is an adjustment. This is not something that I've just flowed directly into. I mean, there's still flesh here, okay, and there's still a mind up here that operates in the worldly sense, and I also know that the Lord is helping me to bring some of those things into submission, and that doesn't happen overnight for most of us, or not for me anyway. Call me hard-headed, slow to change, whatever, but that's also a process that I've been working through the last 90 days. So I want to tell folks out there, don't expect it to just, happen in the blink of an eye, because this is something you'll have to press into as well. So
that's a good word, because I do remember that, for me, that was about 2 years ago, and it was the first few weeks were kind of fun. It's like, I don't have anywhere to be today. Like I don't have to deal with anything. You know, I'm kind of free, and I'm good. And so that it's kind of like going on vacation. Like it's fun for a minute, and then there definitely was that part that you start to feel like, is there going to be a next thing? Am I stuck? Am I being lazy? Should I be trying harder? You know, especially when God's telling you to sit tight. That's hard to do. It's maybe more so for men than women. I don't want to speak for women. I don't know, but like I know for men, that's tough because we're supposed to go out and make stuff happen and get stuff done and be productive and contribute. And when I remember being at home and everyone leaving and going, you could see all the neighborhood emptying out, everybody's going to work. And you're just, it's like me and the young moms with their babies out taking their walks, and I was like, what am I doing? And so, so I'm glad you said that because that is a challenge. It can be a challenge, especially for guys when God's saying, hey, I want you to rest. That's a good word for sure.
You have to be careful of the voices. Be careful of the voices you listen to in that too.
Yeah.
Because it's amazing to me at the opportunities that came to me that I wasn't seeking it. And it was like, it's nice to be wanted,
sure.
But the cry of my heart is I want to do what you've called me to do, not what man's called me to do. Even though those things, they're doing some amazing things in the spiritual world in these organizations where I've had some opportunities, but it's like I'm not hearing God in that. So
yeah.
So, and that's a struggle too, because it's just like you said, as a guy, we feel like we're supposed to make things happen.
Yeah.
And that's generally when I've gotten in trouble in my life, by the way.
I agree with that. And the other, when you talk about the voices, the other thing that I found hard during that season was, every time you run into somebody you haven't seen in a while, they want to know what's the plan. What are you doing? What are you going to do? So you get tired of talking about it, honestly, because again, as a guy, especially, you kind of feel defensive. You're sort of trying to explain it in a way that this isn't, I'm not choosing to just sit here like God's telling, it's this whole thing. And you do get tired of kind of explaining it to people and hoping they understand. And some people who well and trust, they get it. But others you can almost sense like, are they judging me? Or it's a weird tension of trying to, like you said, just listen to the one voice that matters and know who you can trust around you to support you in it. And then the rest of it, you just have to kind of tune out, for sure.
It's a real thing.
It's a real thing for sure. Well, I wanted to ask you, when you took the job that you had before, the ministry you were part of, the international thing that you were doing, coming from the construction world, and I know you were on the board of that ministry before you went on the staff, but what was that transition like? Because a lot of times I hear people say stuff like, well, I might be interested in something or feel passion for it, but like I don't have any experience. I've never been in missions like you were moving from basically construction world to, hey, I'm going to travel the world and lead these ministers and talk to ministers and missionaries and give them resources. Like, was that a struggle that you had to overcome, or did you have a confidence going in? Because on paper that might not have been the most obvious choice. And how did you kind of work through that?
I knew that I was called there. I mean, I had a piece about it. Now, I say I knew. Let me preface that a little bit. When they approached me about this, it's after one of our board meetings, and I'd actually led the devotional for the board meeting, and it was about retirement that day, is what I felt like God put in my heart. And they approached me after that to think about it and then made the offer. But it was several weeks. In fact, Jeanette will probably correct me and say it was a month. But anyway, before I let them know, I had to walk through a process. Number one, I needed to, not only been out of that for 2 weeks. So it was like I'd been on a 2-week vacation, like you were talking about.
Oh, nothing. It was tight. Okay.
The reality had not really set in that I was not, fully engaged somewhere, if you will. So, it took me a period of time to get past that. But when I stepped into that, I knew I was called to that. I told you about the threefold ministry calling. I mean, that had been going on for 17 years before that. Okay. So, and this kind of fell in line with the calling. But God prepared me for a lot of that as I was walking into that, because I was thinking, okay, what am I bringing to the table? What are you trying to show me in these relationships you're building? Because I'd still have relationships with several of those CEOs that I worked with, the missions organizations, and several people in the field. So who I would ask you guys to pray for right now, because some of these folks are in the middle of what's taking place in Iran and all over the Middle East. But God prepared me for that time. I mean, I can't tell you that I came in there and I already had a full background from my time on the board with Doulos and all that. But I was just open to what God had for me. Was it uncomfortable at times? There was a few times that especially in the field, that I had to question myself. But for the most part, I knew I was supposed to be there, and so I didn't have any massive transition change problems or whatever.
What I hear you saying is that the calling kind of trumped everything else. Like
absolutely.
Whatever other shortcomings you might have had or inexperience or whatever, it's like, I don't necessarily know how to do this, but God's calling me, I'm going to do it. That's one thing I love about you. Your faith is very high. Like you believe. And I hope people are listening. I hope people who are listening and watching are hearing that, because we have a little saying we say around our church and stuff, that God doesn't necessarily call the equipped, but he equips the called.
Right. That's exactly
and that
right.
really speaks to this issue that says, hey, if you believe he's calling you and he's opening a door and he's preparing a way and all the cliches, all those things, he's making it happen for you, then, it's not about you, it's about him. And our only job is to say yes. Our only job is to say yes, and then just be faithful with it.
Yeah, and your calling is your anchor. I mean, no matter what. Guys that are in ministry, listen to what I'm telling you. And I'm just reminding you, because this is something you guys already know. Your calling is your anchor, and that's what you go back to every time something happens. As the winds of change come, or the waves of craziness start to overtake you, that calling is your anchor. And when you go back to that anchor, to that calling, and you're not reminding God of what he said to you, you're reminding yourself of what God said to you and what your calling is. And that's where you'll find calm again, is going back to that anchor of your calling. So many people get distracted. And that's what the evil one does. He distracts us through the lies and deception. That he puts in front of us. But go back to that anchor.
That's strong. That's strong. Well, while you're in this season, and like you said, it's been a few months now that you've been in this season, kind of waiting for that next thing, whatever God's going to bring your way. What would you say you've learned is the biggest thing you've learned over these last few months in this sort of waiting and resting period?
Wow. I go back to the gifts of the Spirit. What he's taking me back to is, he's constantly working us through this process of life. And we're, leaders are learners. So I'm constantly learning different things as I walk this out. Here lately, it's been patience. Something most of us struggle with, especially in today's society. It's not just men, but and his time. We always want to do it. We want it now, and we we want it in the context of a microwave, and he puts it out there in the context of a crock pot. So that's one of the things that he's walking me through, I think, and I'm learning is there's a value in the fruits of the Spirit: the love, the joy, the peace, the patience, the kindness, the goodness, the gentleness, the self-control. And walking that out on a daily basis has been one of the things I've learned in this process.
That's good.
We're always looking for things to stimulate us and to have something to do. So, he's given us a mind and an imagination. for me, that takes me down different roads of, man, I'd like to try that. Maybe that would, work. I mean, we're looking for things that are going to satisfy us in the way he created us. But in reality, what he showed me through the patience process is the only way that I'm going to be satisfied is if I'm doing exactly what he made me to do.
That's right.
And, I think some of that, I'm not saying the calling changes, I'm not saying, but I think as we age and as we mature mentally and spiritually, he's going to put us in places and positions to where he can use us. We're probably going to feel uncomfortable. And I think that's a very good position to be in. I'm not saying I'm comfortable with that right now, but I think that's one of the things he's working out in me is, do you trust me?
Yeah.
I've got this, but do you trust me? So.
Well, faith is one of those things that everybody says they have until they need it.
That's exactly right.
Faith is easy to talk about when everything's great. And we have a lot of faith then. It's when the rubber hits the road and things go south or get weird or sideways or whatever. You get the diagnosis, you get the phone call, you get the news you weren't expecting. Something happens in world events like right now that might really be bothering some people. Like things happen, and that's when faith really matters the most. Do you believe? Do you believe that God has a plan? Do you believe He's good? Do you believe that He's going to provide for you? Do you all those things that we have to process? That really is the ultimate key during those times, especially when we're in transition, and especially when we don't have an answer yet or we're waiting. It's because there's so many. We talked about the voices before. There's the outside voices and there's internal voices. There's fear. There's the dark forces of the enemy who are getting in your ear, trying to, because I'm sure you're probably experiencing too. You're not around people probably as much as you were. You're not going to the office every day. You're not on an airplane with people. And when we're alone, even though there's a time and place for that, just like Jesus in the wilderness. I mean, there's a time to be on your own and dependent on Him. But that's we have to have a lot of mental, emotional, spiritual strength to not listen to the wrong things, to really make sure that we're staying focused on Him, because that isolation can be a positive, but it can also be an opportunity to kind of spin out, and we start, the doubts and the fears and the questions start pouring in, and it's easy to let those get away from us a little bit.
Yeah, that goes back to what we were talking about. It's earlier. I said, be careful with voices you listen to. Sometimes your own can be dangerous. And that's generally when it happens, is when you get yourself or find yourself where you feel isolated. I had this conversation this week. I was saying, sometimes I find myself alone because I was so accustomed to being surrounded by people all the time, maybe not face to face, but for sure, either on the phone, face to face, on Zoom, whatever the case may be. So yeah, I think you have to be careful with some of that. And I think that, that's another thing I'm trying to figure out too in this whole process, is I've got to have those relationships and the time, the FaceTime with people. So that's one of the things I'm walking through right now. I had that conversation with Jeanette yesterday. So
yeah, I mean, it's real because your job was a very big job. You're president of this organization and all the responsibilities, and even though it was your choice to make the change and you're just following God, but there are those moments of you're needed everywhere, and now you're not needed at all. Or that's how it feels. And everybody needs to talk to you and get your opinion. And now nobody's calling, because they've moved on. I mean, life goes on. And I think too, there's a big identity piece that can go with that, where again, as men especially, we tend to get very tied into what we do. And how busy we are and how important we are and who's depending on us and all that stuff. And it's so easy to let that become our identity versus the sonship of the Father, which is really all that we really are supposed to be doing.
Well, I think that we all deal with what I would call identity crisis. And that comes in different forms. But in this time, that's where I find myself. It's easy to lose your identity. I think one of the things I would say too kind of jumping back for a second about my daily processes, is getting up and getting dressed, and getting ready for the day. I mean, there's something to that process as well.
Yeah.
Because that starts to set the mentality. Okay, I've got something to do today, even though I don't have anything on my calendar. Being prepared for that process. But it is important also to not isolate yourself. That's why we still go to small groups and do what we do in that process. And, we maintain these relationships that we've built over the years. I mean, the phone rings both ways. Don't get upset because somebody doesn't call you. Pick up the phone and call them. And I've had to be very intentional in that too, understanding that they're not too busy to want to talk. I mean, we've got a relationship and there's something to offer there. And really what I found in that too, when I take the initiative to make that call because God's put somebody on my mind, there's something that they're in the midst of. There could be a storm in their life that I can speak into or walk them, through the process. Not saying I'm fixing it for them. Sometimes they just need somebody to listen. So
that's right. That's right. And, it's great to be in a season where you have some time. You've got some margin. That's a commodity, I think, or an asset that most people don't have on the regular basis. And so when you have an opportunity like you have right now, and I've been there as well, or even now with my work, there are seasons of the way my company ebbs and flows.
Right.
When I just know it's going to be a little bit quieter, I've got more time for coffees and lunches, and I can go see people. And there's seasons when I can't do any of that because I'm running. But when we have those opportunities for whatever reason, it is great to lean in, because you're right. People are so receptive when you text or call and you go, "Hey, God's put you on my heart today, and I don't know why, and I don't need to know, but I just wanted to tell you I love you. I'm praying for you. Here's a scripture God put on my heart for you," whatever. I mean, every time the response is, "Man, thank you so much for lifting me up." And yeah, there is something I'm going through. Maybe they want to talk about it, maybe they don't. But just the fact that someone is tuned into the Holy Spirit prompting them, because He uses us to minister to each other. And so it's a great asset to have when you have a little bit extra time on your hands. There's no doubt about that.
It's really a gift. I mean, and I view it that way too. I mean, some people look at it as kind of a curse. But it is what you make of it also. So I will say that. And I have to be very intentional. And I would say that, be intentional about getting up, getting dressed, getting out. There's always something for you to do. There's always somebody that needs to hear from you. So,
Yeah, that is absolutely the truth. And also, I want to remind people too, I don't know if you're like me, but when I'm in those busy seasons, and because I work for myself and work remote, I do a lot of coffee shops and stuff like that. I like the noise, and again, it's good to get out and just be with people, even if you're not talking to them. But I remember thinking, I've seen this many times. I'll see a guy maybe my age-ish, professional looking guy, whatever, somebody I can kind of relate to, and he's just over there reading a book. And I'm like, man, that must be nice. And then when you have the opportunity to do it, you don't do it because you're fighting, again, all the voices, and I should be more productive or doing this or doing that or whatever. And so, I just want to encourage people to think about that when you're in these moments of rest or slowness or seasons of just it's not as busy or whatever, and try to enjoy yourself. Go read the book. Go be that guy. Be that person. Because those typically are short windows, and then things change and get back to normal or busy or whatever. But it's a great opportunity to have for sure. Well, you just mentioned getting with other people and mentoring and coaching and encouraging and picking up the phone and calling, all that stuff. And I know that's a big thing for you. And I know that you do a lot of that with guys, other people our age that are kind of in the same season of life. As you do that, what do you think one of the biggest issues is that men, especially our age, 'cause I know you're not counseling ladies, you're talking to guys. What's a pervasive or constant issue that you see guys in their 50s, 60s, 70s? What do you see them facing? And how do you help coach them through that?
A lot of it's identity crisis, what we talked about earlier. It's amazing. What I've seen in men's ministry over the years has not changed. And I think it's the situations of life that call men to isolate, get depressed, or whatever the case may be. And because the world tells us we got to do it on our own and all that. And that's why most guys identify themselves with what they do for a living.
Yeah.
How many times have you talked to a guy and said, I just want to try to get to know you and kind of see who you are. And they look at you and go, I'm a child of the Most High God. Never had that happen for me. Okay. It's usually, this is what I do for a living. This is where I came from. This is kind of where I think I'm headed and all that. And I think that's an identity crisis. And helping, for me, it was, I mean, I would tell you, I identified myself with what I did for years. And it affected my family, my ministry. I mean, it affected all aspects of my life and not necessarily in a good way.
Yeah.
Okay. So really, I think it's, helping them understand who they are in Christ. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying I'm walking them through a 10 bullet point process of how to get out of that. I'm just, a lot of it's about listening to what they say. Trying to identify with, where they are and helping them walk through a process. Like I said, I don't know what that process looks like, because let me tell you, every one of those guys is dealing with something different in their own way. My counselor, no. I can just say, I kind of went through something like that at this point in time, and this is where it took me, and it was a bad place, and this is how I worked through that process, or this is how God got me out of there. Most of the time, if you point them back to this one place, it'll help them every time, and that's to the Word.
Yeah.
The Word of God is a window to our soul, and most guys would never look back to that. I mean, look, I've got the wall behind me. There's a ton of leadership books and self-help books on this one and the other two bookcases back here. And at the end of the day, the go-to for me now has become the Word, and helping them walk through that process, because some people are intimidated by the Word. Okay. And I think that's the struggle that most guys have in the identity crisis, is because they're committing the sin of comparison. And they're comparing where they are in life with the guy that lives across the street, or the guy that lives in the bigger house in the other section of the subdivision that's, more affluent, whatever the case.
Yeah.
But, that's what the world calls us to. And I think that identity crisis is probably the biggest issue that I see among men in the world today. And when I say the world, I've got friends in other countries that I've met through my travels and everything. And guess what? It's the same there that it is here.
That comparison thing, it really is a challenge. We had a guest on a few months ago named Angus Nelson, and I'm just mentioning this, so if anybody wants to go back and listen to this episode, it was really powerful. And he lives over in Portugal, and he's an executive coach, and we've known each other for a long time, and he's written some books, and he's really great. He deals with what we would call very high level successful men, mainly. And he made the point that even those guys that we would look at and think, you've done all this right, their biggest thing is they're always looking and saying, I thought I'd be further along than I am at this point in my life. I thought I'd be in a different place. I thought I would have accomplished more. And he said, that's to a person, that's one of the biggest sort of, when you drill down, that's one of the issues that they're facing. Like you said, it's identity. It's, I thought I'd be a different person, or I thought I'd show up in a different way, or have done more, or whatever the stuff is. And you talked about going to the Word. I just wanted to share this. I was meeting with one of my teams this morning, and my word for the year is the word abide from John 15:5. And I credit Dwayne Donner a lot with that, because I've been hanging around with him and his organization a lot. They're a client as well. In fact, he's going to be on in a few weeks. I'm excited to have him. We're going to talk about this. But I was just sharing a little bit about this, and it's so one of the things I was telling my team is a branch doesn't strain to produce fruit. It doesn't set goals. It doesn't hustle harder. It just stays attached to the vine, or attached to the root of the thing. And it said, and fruitfulness is not a performance issue; it's a proximity issue. And that right there, I mean, that when you talk about identity, because for men especially, it's so performance based, and that's, it's like, what have we done? How have we shown up? And the truth is, John 15:5 tells us, just abide in the Lord and be attached to the vine. Don't be out here on your own trying to do a thing, but fruitfulness comes from just being attached to Him, being in Him. And it really is it's a simple concept that is so hard to actually apply. For me, I'll just talk about me. It's so easy to get away from that.
Well, I think a good question to ask somebody is, where do you find your self-worth? In other words, what are you involved in that makes you feel accomplished in life? And what's your standard? Who sets your standard? I think too often, I'll quote my dad on some things here. He always talked about the television. He said, he called it the idiot box. He said, because if you watch it long enough, you'll be an idiot. But, too often we look to those things to set the standard of where we want to be, or where we feel like we're gonna feel accomplished and all that. And I will tell you, where you spend your time, it's where you're going to spend your dollars, and where you're going to spend. I mean, everything's going to revolve around. For me, one of the things that has helped me is, more than anything I've ever done, is when I'm spending time with the Lord. Okay, whether that's in worship and prayer, or in the Word, or spending time reading what some other men have ascertained in the Word. Listen, I'm not going to say I'm a true scholar. I didn't go to divinity school or any of that stuff. What I'm saying is there's a lot of folks out there that are smarter than me. So I press into what they say too, because I'm going to learn more from some of the mistakes that they've made, some of the things they talk about in their devotionals or the books they've written, whatever. So, that's where I start with a lot of these guys is just that. What are you pressing into? Where are you spending your time? At one time, I can tell you that I lived like a fool. Okay. My religion was golf. The clubhouse was my church, and the bar was my pew. Okay. Just being real. Okay. I mean, if I can't be real on here, with you, I'm no sense in me talking to you, but that's kind of where I found myself in life. And it wasn't until a tragedy kind of took place during that time that kind of brought me back to center. And it's really funny. I went back to my anchor. Okay. My calling, because I was at the bottom. I had nowhere else to go. And that's crazy that the place you should be going to all your life is the last place you go to when you're in the pit. Okay. But that's just kind of where I was. So that's my question is, where are you spending your time? What are you putting your trust in? Who's calling the shots for what you think is going to make you happy? Because I can tell you that what the world throws out there, you're never going to be satisfied with. I'll make this statement. I hope I'm not stepping on anybody's toes. I'm not being derogatory when I say this, but some of the most miserable people I've ever met in my life had a lot of money. And it's a shame. I wish they had realized that they had a lot more opportunity, because where I found my greatest joy in life was not when I was getting something. It was when I was giving something. And I've had the opportunity to give a lot of things away in my life, and I'm not bragging when I say that. Don't want anybody to take this the wrong way, because I really don't like to talk about where I gave my money and what I did. Okay. But I will tell you that I learned more from the tithe of my money than anything I've ever learned from the Word. And what it says about that is true. You can't outgive God. And that was a challenge to me at one point. And it was a lot of fun, but it also taught me a lot about worldly wealth and what it'll actually do to you. Most people think it'll do something for you, but it's really doing something to you. And the scale of balance there is, which direction is it taking? Is it taking you down the worldly road, or is it taking you down the spiritual road? And what fruit are you seeing from it? So, that's it's really where I point point guys to is, where you spending your time and what's valuable to you. And I think that's the key question for most men because of the identity crisis we're in. So,
no doubt. Well, man, this has been an amazing hour. I can't believe we're already this long into it. It feels like we just got started.
Wow.
But I will say and ask you, just kind of to wrap up, knowing our audience is again, mostly 50s, 60s, 70s people who are hopefully on the same journey you and I are on. They're seeking their calling, or they're living in it already. And that's all we're asking people to do is kind of get after it. But for those people who are watching that may be stuck or trying to figure it out, or think, well, this sounds great, I don't think God can use me for anything, or I don't know if he's got a plan for me. How would you encourage them, challenge them? What would you say if you just could say one thing to them? What would you say?
Wow. Get into the Word. Surround yourself with people who have your best interest in mind. I mean, join a small group. I mean, I'm going to tell you, I came from a Baptist background. When I came to Highlands, one of the things that concerned me most was the small group aspect. Because, how do you control what happens in a small group and all that? But I'm going to tell you, what I found when we came there seriously is the things that I was concerned most about have been the things that have blessed me the most. And small groups have been the thing that's blessed me the most. Get around a group of guys who you can be real with. Yeah. Listen, most guys aren't going to judge you. Somebody's got to take the mask off first. Okay. But when you get around a group of guys that you can be real with and tell them what's going on in your life, it's amazing how the Lord will use all those men to walk you through the process. I know you've seen that, Mark, but I'll tell you, that's been the thing that has blessed me the most, really, in those contexts, is those guys. And trust me, I found myself leading sometimes, and I looked around and realized that I wasn't leading; they were leading me.
That's right.
Through these processes. So get around some folks that love you, have your best interest in mind, impress them the Word of God and what it says about you, and watch what He'll do in that. So, man, that you can't say it any better than that. No better than that, because you're absolutely right, man. That's, if you get in the Word, you believe what He's telling you, He'll tell you that all this other stuff are lies, and there is purpose for you, there is calling for you, there's something He wants you to do, there's something He designed you for, and it'll tell you, it'll reassure you and reinforce that message, hopefully, that God will use you. Well, man, it's been awesome. I appreciate you being on here today. Yeah. I know. I've made some notes as you've been saying some stuff. I'm like, oh, that's a highlight. We're going to put that on Instagram. That's a highlight. So I know there's going to be some good stuff in here for people to get. So, man, I love you and I appreciate you. I love you too, my friend. Thanks for inviting me in. Man, like I said, I hope this reaches some folks that it's going to help in the process. That's why we do what we do, right?
That's right. I believe that it will. As promised, that was a great episode. And when I say that, it's got nothing to do with me. It is 100% about our guest. And we've had some really amazing guests, and Rusty was no exception today. Hope you got a lot out of that and learned about how to rest in the in-between times as God prepares you for new seasons. And let's not forget that there are always new seasons coming. As long as we're here and we have breath and ability, God's got something for us to do. And I hope that you were really challenged and inspired by that. Hey, just want to remind you one more time to like, follow, subscribe on whatever channels you're listening or watching on. We'd love to have you be part of the community. You can join our email list at ageoflions.com, see new things that are coming, and kind of really get involved in the community, which we really value here. So this is not about me. It's not about me trying to be the focus of it all. It's really about a community of us doing this together. I am just your host. I'm just your facilitator. So we'd love for you to get involved with all that. Can't wait to see you next week, and we will talk then. Bye.